Hi everyone, this is Eric Bond, the founder of Beat2GMAT, and I wanted to welcome you to today's webinar, which we are calling Your MBA Should Be in Europe. So why is this session called Your MBA Should Be in Europe? Well, the reason why is we hope you'll have two takeaways coming out of this session. The first is that Europe offers some of the best business school education anywhere on the planet. That's one takeaway. And the second is that not only can you get awesome business school education in Europe, but you can get it at an incredible value. So that's it for today. Thanks for coming. Okay, I'm just kidding. We do have a great session planned for you, and why don't we go over what we'll be doing today. So in a moment, I am going to turn it over to our top European MBA program representatives. We have some amazing schools here today, and they're going to do about 10 minutes each an introduction of their programs. And this will be a great way for you to get an orientation of the different types of schools and different types of regions that you can study. For the next session at 10 o'clock, we are going to have a moderated panel discussion where I'll serve as the facilitator. We're going to discuss a number of issues related to what it's like to pursue an MBA in Europe, as well as post-MBA career opportunities in Europe and what a European MBA means even globally. And finally, I'm calling this a virtual breakout session from 11 to 12. In that final hour, we are going to ask each of the representatives here today in this panel to go to the respective MBA Watch comment walls for their schools, and this is going to be your opportunity to ask your questions directly to the schools and have a real admissions expert from the school provide you some responses. So I hope you have a lot of questions that come in today. We're going to do our best to have them addressed at some point during this conversation. So why don't I go ahead and introduce our panelists. We have a very, very distinguished set of folks here who are sharing their time. And even before I go into the introductions, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone on our panel who is spending their Saturday night with us. So right now it is morning time in California where I am. And I'm drinking my morning coffee, and it's lovely, but it's actually starting to get kind of late for our folks, our friends in Europe who are here with us today, and we really appreciate your time to spend your Saturday with us, and hopefully it's going to be one where hopefully it's going to be entertaining and and a lot of fun for everyone involved. So that thank you also is extended as well to all of the participants who are out there. I took a look at the list of folks who are attending today, and we have a very global audience from North America, Africa, Europe, and Asia. None from Antarctica yet. That's maybe a little bit later in the hour, but I understand that for some of you it's very late as well, particularly the folks in Asia. It's almost past midnight, or even already past midnight. So thank you guys all for spending your late evenings with us, or your mornings, or your afternoons. So why don't I get into introducing each of our panelists, and I'll be very brief here, and then I'll turn it over to the speakers. So the first speaker I'd like to introduce is Jeroen Verhoeven, who is the Associate Director of MBA Admissions at ESADE Business School in Spain. Jeroen is responsible for recruitment in North America and Africa for the ESADE full-time MBA, and he's originally from the Netherlands. Next we have Lisa Piguet, who is the Associate Director of MBA Marketing and Admissions for IMD in Switzerland. So Lisa, before she held this role, had a number of interesting positions as a corporate leader as well as an entrepreneur, and she's originally from Colorado. From INSEAD, we have Andrew Bueno, who is the Assistant Director of Marketing for the MBA program at INSEAD in France, and he's responsible for recruiting in Europe, Israel, and Central Asia. And like myself, Andrew is a Michigan native, so go Lions, Red Wings, and Tigers, and I hope that at least some of you got those references. From the London Business School, we have Nadia Erazem. Nadia is the recruitment and admissions manager there. She's a London native and has held many roles at top firms like McKinsey and Goldman Sachs. And last but not least, we have Tyler Henderson, who is the Director of North American Operations at the SEA Bocconi School of Management in Italy. Before Bocconi, Tyler had a career working in international higher education, policy, and issues across several countries in Europe. And today he is based in Indianapolis, Indiana. So a big welcome and good evening to our panelists. And at this point, I think I've done enough talking, and I'm going to hand it over to Jeroen to kick us off with an introduction for his school. So Jeroen, the floor is yours. Hey folks, this is Eric Bond, and I just wanted to step in because I think we have lost the audio for Jeroen. What we're going to do is we're going to move on to the next presentation, and we will figure out the technical difficulties that we're having with Jeroen and come back to him in just a moment to have him finish off his presentation. So that being said, why don't we move on to our next presenter, which is Lisa. Lisa, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine. So I've gone ahead and...
Can you guys hear me?
We
yeah,
can hear,
okay.
We can hear you just fine, and I've given you control over my computer, so please go ahead and proceed.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you all the attendees who actually are spending, I guess, your morning with us. We're spending our evening. I'm Lisa Piguet. I'm the Associate Director of Marketing and Admissions, and I'm here at IMD. I've been here for, gosh, a long time now. Over 10 years, and always have been in admissions, but I've been managing all different kinds of other groups at IMD, but never out of the MBA department. It's my favorite group here on campus. Anyway, I'm going to give you a brief overview of IMD, and hopefully I can click on here. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to give you. So I'm responsible for marketing and admissions in the full-time MBA, not the EMBA. So I'll go ahead and give you kind of our unique selling propositions of the full-time MBA, and if at the end, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. So let's go ahead and start here. So I'm going to give you an overview of the program. So first of all, the IMD MBA is an 11-month, it says 1 year, but it's an 11-month general management program. So what does that mean? It means you're going to get all the business fundamentals, finance, accounting, marketing, strategy, etc., but kind of from a general management perspective. You won't get to focus on anything in particular. The big focus, however, throughout the program, if you look at the red thread, which I'll show you in a moment, is leadership and personal development. And we'll go into that in a moment. It's a unique program in the sense that it's kind of a roll-up-your-sleeves, hands-on learning approach. There are a lot of projects in the program that you'll actually end up doing. So you'll go to finance in the morning class, and then, for example, in the afternoon, you'll actually go to your project and work on project work. So you can actually practice what you learn in finance in the afternoon. And so what the whole philosophy is that the information sticks better. It's a mature class. Our average age is 31. Average number of years of work experience happens to be 7. However, the minimum to get into the program, you need to be 25 with 3 years of work experience. So if you're on the younger side, it's not a big deal. We just need to make sure that you're mature enough to deal with those 34 and 35-year-olds. We're highly selective. We only have 90 spaces in the MBA program. We have one intake that starts in January, and we call them basically kind of exceptional people, and I'll explain that in a moment. We're very international. We have 40, in this particular class, it's getting ready to graduate pretty soon. We have 45 nationalities with 90 spots. In the incoming class, it starts in January, we'll have 47 nationalities with 90 spots. So very, very international. They come from all over the world. And if you go to the website, you can actually see the breakdown of where they actually come from. The program is very personalized. The participant to faculty ratio is 2 to 1. So that's quite impressive. All right, so if you look at the ranking, IMD is consistently one of the top-ranked programs. The two latest rankings that came in is the Forbes ranking, which both are from 2011. We were ranked #1 for ROI for one-year programs. So they looked at the students 5 years out, and that's how they did this ranking. The Economist ranking just came out about a month ago. We were ranked number 3 worldwide, and then number 1 for one-year programs. So this is just a snapshot here of the program. I'm not going to go into all of this. You can download this on the IMD website, but this is just to kind of show you how the modules are set up. So if you look at the top, the light blue, this is kind of where you basically do the classes all the time. So you have finance, accounting, marketing all the way up throughout the year. And then we have basically a 4-month module of entrepreneurship where we actually work with live startup companies. This particular area where IMD is based in happens to be the 3rd largest area in the world for venture capital and private equity funding. So we have a lot of startups that come here, and IMD basically chooses 16 per year. And the MBAs are split up in groups of 5 or 6, and you actually get to work with a live startup company that's basically in this area. The 2 other things to note in the green area, it says assess a growth opportunity and plan and implement change. These are big projects. These are what we call international consulting projects, and these basically are large multinationals, names that you would all know, and they actually are paying IMD for you to go out and consult to them. So they're paying us 75,000 Swiss francs, which I believe is roughly 90,000 US dollars. I haven't looked at the exchange rate lately, but so these are very, very important projects that are always followed by a faculty member, and then you do basically a trip off campus. Oh, by the way, the international consulting projects are usually based abroad, so you can be based anywhere in the world. So we had a group this year that was based in Saudi Arabia for 4 weeks, Qatar, Brazil, U.S. I mean, and you actually get to choose your project, which is quite nice. Then you have a discovery expedition, which is right in the middle, July through August. And the last 3 classes have gone to South Africa, and it's basically working with small and medium-sized businesses. It's kind of like, I haven't lived in the U.S. in a long time, but it's like I think it's the Donald Trump show where you actually get the Apprentice, I think it's called, where you get a project at the very beginning and you have to kind of solve it at the end, and that's exactly what the MBAs have to do. And then at the end you have electives, and that's what's in orange. But if you look at the bottom, the blue, it's essentially talking about understanding yourself. And this is where the leadership comes in, and I'll go into that in depth. But you can see that it runs from the beginning of the program to the very end. Now here's the leadership. This is what makes IMD really, really unique. So essentially, it's a year-long leadership stream. What we're trying to do is we're trying to teach you to exercise leadership responsibly, lead big teams and groups, and then develop your self-awareness and understanding on basically how you exercise leadership. And so how do we do this? And so a lot of people say, you know, how do you put that into practice? So one of the things we do is we do outdoor team building exercises. And that essentially is where we take the MBAs to the mountains, to the Alps actually, and it's usually in the winter time, so it's usually snowing. But we equip them well, and we put them in boots and hats and gloves, and they spend a couple days out there doing different kinds of exercises within their teams, but they're actually being filmed. So you get to watch yourself in a very stressful situation and how you react to different kinds of elements: cold, anger, frustration, tired. So it's quite interesting. And you come back with a team coach and you debrief and you watch yourself on film. So it's actually quite interesting. The next thing we do is something called individual and team coaching. So at IMD, you actually get 20 sessions with a licensed psychologist as part of the leadership stream. And this is an elective, but about 95% of the MBAs actually choose to take it. And it's amazing, I would say, the transformation that happens in these people once they actually take the elective. You also get a team coach. So each study group, again 5 to 6 people, is assigned a team coach that actually watches you interact with your team for the first, so it's about month and a half, and they're essentially giving you feedback all the time on how you're doing with your colleagues essentially. We do 360 reviews all the time. So at IMD, it's kind of the joke that you're basically getting feedback all day long, and you're getting feedback from the professors, from your colleagues, from the MBA office. That's the beauty of it being a little bit small. And so the bottom one talks about the psychologist. Okay, I'm trying to switch here. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to just talk briefly about placement results because I know a lot of people are doing MBAs to change careers. And I'll talk about this. So the average base salary for this last year's class, they graduated in December of 2010, was almost 130,000 US dollars. And we're one of the higher starting salaries out there, but we're a little bit older, so that's hence the reason for being higher. The average sign-on bonus was about the percent sign-on bonus was 66%. The average bonus was almost 24,000, and then 68% average salary increase, which isn't bad considering we are slightly older. And then the most impressive thing is 97% of the class changed geography, industry, or function, which is what you want to actually do when you do an MBA like this. Anyway, so if you want to contact us, you can please go to the website. I'm not going to read out basically the links here, but please go to the website and feel free to ask us any questions, download the brochure, download the career stats, anything that you'd like to do. So thank you, and I look forward to your questions later.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lisa. And next, I think we have, yes, we do have Andrew Bueno from INSEAD. So just a moment here while I set up Andrew. Andrew, can you hear us?
I can. Hi, everyone.
Okay, just one moment here, and we are going to get into your presentation. And okay, great. So Andrew, you should have control over my desktop. So whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you, Eric. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here this morning with all of you. It's kind of like being on a like a radio station and talking to an audience around the world. I'm going to do my best to try and sum up the key points about INSEAD's MBA program. I've been working here at INSEAD for the last 6 years now within the marketing team, had a few different roles, and I'm based in Paris, and I commute down to the Fontainebleau campus every day when I'm actually on campus and not on the road traveling. So I just wanted to start off with pointing out where our campuses and our locations are, because for those of you that may not have traveled extensively through Europe, the town Fontainebleau really may not ring a bell. So we have 3 campuses. One is located in Fontainebleau, France, which is about 60 kilometers south of Paris. The other campus is located in Singapore. So for those of you that are familiar with Singapore, it's on the southwest kind of side of the island. And then the third is in Abu Dhabi, where we've just been there most recently, probably the last 4 years there. So celebrated 50 years in Fontainebleau, 10 years in Singapore, and now in Abu Dhabi. So Eric, just trying to switch the slide here. I'm not sure if it's going through. If you don't mind quickly helping me with that, that'd be brilliant. All right.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Can you guys see the screen now?
Okay. Yep, I think I just saw it change. So
Okay, you have control, Andrew.
Let me just try and click through here. Brilliant. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a bit of an idea of what the INSEAD learning community represents across all 3 locations. Today we're speaking about the full-time MBA program, as you can see there on the left-hand side, which has about 1,000 participants. Those students are divided into 2 intakes of roughly 500 each, and then they're further divided across the France and Singapore campuses. Won't spend too much time discussing the other programs, as you guys are here for the full-time MBA, but do like to highlight that we do have an executive MBA and PhD and executive programs which take place simultaneously on all 3 of our campuses, actually, and so you would have the opportunity to interact with the students from those different programs when you're on campus. But for the MBA program, which you're here to learn more about, let's have a bit of a closer look as to what are the students that are represented here on our program. So the point of this slide is obviously not to memorize all the small text and numbers next to the pie charts, little pinpoints on the screen, but just to notice that there is a lot of different pinpoints on the map. So for this last class, we had 86 nationalities in the class of 2011, and almost all countries are less than 10%. So the whole point with this slide is to really realize that there is no majority nationality on the program, and that everyone is a minority at INSEAD. We do not have any quotas for bringing students onto the program. So, I'm going to spend a bit of time now just on the admissions process. I know, I mean, obviously nowadays people between the Beat the GMAT website and our own website, you can have access to a lot of information. So I was just trying to think, what can you get from me that you wouldn't be able to get to the website? And that might be a bit more of an in-depth explanation as to what we're looking for in applicants to our MBA program. So I'm going to spend a couple minutes here on the admissions criteria. So just let's go through kind of going clockwise, starting off with the purple category. When you're filling out your application to INSEAD, we're looking for 4 main criteria, and you have those there up on the screen. So the academic capacity, we're looking for good undergraduate degrees, and then obviously your GMAT score. So we do, for the GMAT, we look for scores that are in the 70th to 75th percentile and above. And academic capacity, we're really more interested in what you studied, why did you study it, and what have you done with it. So the point here is not to be elitist or to say that you can only apply to our school if you've gone to the top school in your nation. Not everyone has had the same financial means or abilities or access to education. So just to have a better understanding as to where you studied and how you've applied that in your professional life. If for some reason that it's not really coherent, let's say you studied philosophy and then you worked as a journalist and then you actually went to law school and now you're looking to do an MBA, it's all right, but we're going to be curious as to why you made those decisions. So have a think about that. The next aspect is going to be leadership potential. So this would have historically maybe been called managerial experience. With time, we've changed that. You don't have to have managerial experience to join our MBA program. And so we're looking more for leadership potential demonstrated in career progression, and then obviously in your personal life too. So take some time to think about where you lead in the workplace. It could be leading on a project, leading a team, budget. But also maybe in your personal life, I don't know, do you play rugby? Are you in a musical group or a political group? Or I don't know, sometimes people are involved in religious organizations. But just give us some examples about your personal life and how you lead. Now, the third one is going to be ability to contribute. So here what we're looking for is that you contribute proactively and share professional and personal insights in your application with your peers in and outside of the classroom. So how do we evaluate that? Well, it's kind of a bit of a, I wouldn't call it a gray area, but it's really the part of the application where you have to take time to think about who you are as a person, what you're going to contribute to the program as an individual, what are you bringing with you with regards to your prior work experience and your academic experience, but also you as an individual. So I like to, if I was to, you know, we're Saturday night, and some of you this evening, when it becomes evening your time, may be going out for dinner, meeting friends, and what I like to say in my presentations is that if I was a fly on the wall this evening, observing you in your hometown and city at your favorite restaurant, who would I see? What is the type of person that I would see? What would I observe? What kinds of conversations would I hear about? So keep that in mind when you're looking at ability to contribute. Last but not least is going to be international motivation. So obviously here we're looking for cross-culturally sensitive individuals and individuals that have an international outlook. And this is where you need to include any international living and working experiences. So likewise, it's called motivation because we can't expect that everyone has had the same life and same experiences. So some people come from very large countries and who may have only been educated and worked in that one country, which is why it's called motivation. What do you see yourself doing after INSEAD and your motivations post the MBA program? That being said, if you have lived, worked, traveled, and or studied abroad, please take some time to fit those into the different places on our application. All right. Going to have a look at the academic structure of the program because we're all short MBA programs here this evening, you know, under 2 years, 1 year, different types of lengths. So just wanted to quickly highlight what's different with regards to the program duration and structure at INSEAD. As I mentioned at the beginning, we do have 2 intakes per year. One starts in January and graduates in December, and one starts in September and graduates in July. We accept the same amount of people to each intake and then divide them almost equally across our France and Singapore campuses. Program-wise, it's a general management MBA where you'll be taking core courses, as you can see, in the first 2 periods, 2.5 periods roughly, and then doing electives in the last 2.5 periods. So you'll not be required or asked to pick any major or minor or emphasis or focus, but you can choose to tailor your program to your needs and your interests. So when you look at these 5 periods, they roughly represent 2 months each. So if you started in September, you would work all the way through until July in period 5 of the following year. And if you start in January, you would graduate in December. No real difference between the two. It's a very common question. Is there any advantages or are there any differences between the 2 intakes? And the sole difference I would say would be that the January intake does provide the opportunity for a summer internship. So I'll end here in a little bit talking about career services. But you can choose to do the January intake if you want to do an internship in the months of July and August. So during the first portion of the program, which is periods 1 and 2, you're starting off on your home campus, so France and Singapore. And then during periods 3, 4, and 5, you would be exchanging across the 2 campus locations, in addition to our exchanges to the US with Wharton and with Kellogg. So you can find a full list of the elective offerings on our website. If you want to have a look at that more closely, and also a bigger description on the core curriculum. So we have a few minutes left, so I'm going to finish off with career services and alumni. So career services, just wanted to provide you with some stats with regards to the class that graduated now in 2010. So that's the most recent class that we have. So putting up a few stats here for you on the screen. I mentioned summer internships a second ago. We have about 56% of our class, or of the January intake, that do the summer internship. I'd say a good half a chunk in Europe, and a good chunk in Asia, and then a bit of the rest of the world. That also quite closely represents the career stats globally for the end of the year. We do see some changes. So as you can see, the career change, either by sector, function, or geographic change has increased from last year. Also the amount of global opportunities. So that's very nicely going up. We were in the 61, 62 global opportunities after graduation. That's gone up to now 68. So that's roughly 3 months out with regards to these stats. With regards to average salary, it's always an interesting number because it goes up and it goes down depending on what's happening in the economy. But also keep in mind that INSEAD, when you go to 68 different countries, the salaries really vary across all those locations. So that's just the average. If you want a full kind of span of salaries, they go anywhere between the lower thousands of euros per year, I would say, up into the highest, which we saw in London. Made me almost rethink my career in education, which was actually at 355,000 euros working in finance on this last year. So that's the kind of range that you see across the salaries. And then obviously sector choices, and those do change from year to year. Historically, when I first started here at INSEAD, it would have been around 1/3 in each section, and now, as you can see, finance has gone down a bit, and consulting has gone up a bit, and corporate sectors have taken up the rest. So time for me to wrap up. So I'm just going to end up on my last slide here with regards to our alumni network and the locations around the world, the amount of alumni we have. So the pinpoints on the map are the 37 countries in the world where we have at least 100 alumni in. And there you can see that we have, as of today, about 20,000 MBA alumni around the world. Now, in case you're wondering, I picked out the US and Canada because I'd heard that a majority of our audience, or a good half of our audience, was based in North America, so I pulled out some stats there for you. The first figure is the amount of people physically in that country at the moment, and the second figure there is the amount of people that hold that nationality that are working somewhere in this world. So that's it for me. Look forward to chatting with you guys later on the chat portion of our program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And I'll use the extent of my French, which is merci, which I know is, I hacked that as well. So next on our agenda is to have Nadia Erazem to speak to us about the London Business School. So Nadia, can you hear me, Nadia, first of all?
Hello, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. We can hear you just fine as well. We've given you control, and you can now proceed with your presentation.
Very good. Thank you very much, Eric. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. My name is Nadia, as Eric said. I'm originally from London. I was actually born 5 minutes away from the campus, although I've spent a lot of my career traveling around the world, but it's great to be back here. I'm the Recruitment and Admissions Manager for the full-time MBA program. And I hope just to give you a bit of an overview of the MBA program and London Business School as well. If you do want some more sort of in-depth statistics, I do urge you to visit either the London Business School website or I think there are also some stats on the Beat the GMAT website as well. Okay. So why London Business School? I realize that you're probably choosing between various business schools, both in the US and in Europe. But I'll just run through some of the points that I think makes us a little bit different. First of all, we have some fantastic faculty here at the school who are really, really closely connected to business. So the teaching case study method here at London Business School is very pragmatic, very current. Our faculty also have the highest rating for faculty research in the UK, beating some top institutions such as Imperial College or Cambridge as well. So we're very proud of that. We are extremely global as a school. In our community, so our student body, around 81% of the class are from actually outside of the UK, so we're very, very international. But also our faculty are extremely international as well. We also offer programs in Dubai, Hong Kong and New York, not just in London. And a lot of the case study methods and teaching methods here at London Business School is incredibly global as well. We are obviously based in London, amongst other locations, and it's an incredible city. I'm a little bit biased because I'm from London originally, but it's great for business education. It's obviously a huge business centre. And you will benefit from huge global corporations on your doorstep, so fantastic for recruitment purposes. 75% of the world's Fortune 500 companies are actually headquartered, they're based here. Fantastic advantage with the time zone. You can conduct business with the East and the West in the same time. And it's just generally a really exciting city to be in and to study in. And if you are thinking of coming here next year, I'm sure you'll be aware of the Olympics, which is coming to London, which we're all really incredibly excited about. I believe we have a really fantastic peer group here at London Business School. And study groups are a prominent feature in all of our programs, and particularly the MBA program. And our study groups are designed to be as diverse as possible in terms of backgrounds, nationality, work experience. And students often say they learn as much from each other as they do from our faculty here at the school. So it's something to really think about and consider when choosing your MBA and your business school. Ranking and reputation is incredibly important, and you need to remember that this is a brand for life, not just for the time that you spend at the business school. So it is a high investment decision, and ranking and reputation is one factor that you may want to take into consideration. We here at London Business School are ranked #1 for our MBA program in the Financial Times. And our Masters of Finance has also recently received a #1 ranking. So we are extremely happy about that. And finally, flexibility and choice. We do have a wide range of programs here at the school, but in terms of the MBA, we are quite flexible in the way, in the length of the program. So you can actually finish in 15, 18 or 21 months. And the beauty of that is that you don't have to decide straight away. You can do so while on the course. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Okay, so what does your MBA program look like? Here are some MBA opportunities. I'm not going to run through the entire structure of the MBA program, but I'll just list some of the highlights. We recently completed a program review, so some of this may seem new to those people who've maybe started their research process a few years ago. But we'll start with the London Leadership Talks. this is something new that we've introduced into the program because we really wanted to incorporate the City of London into the program a little bit more, and we wanted it to be a focal feature of the course. So we will now introduce various high-profile guest speakers in prominent locations around London. This year, our MBA 2000 students have had the benefit of listening to Ranulph Fiennes, who is obviously the world's greatest living explorer. He came onto campus to speak to our students about some of his stories. And our students also listened to the Lord Mayor of London, and coincidentally, it was the Lord Mayor of London's procession today on the streets of London, so that was great to see. You can benefit from additional internships, particularly important for those of you wanting to switch careers or just try out a different job function or industry. You can do one internship or even more if you wanted to at the school. And a lot of students here at London Business School actually receive full-time offers during their internship period as well. The Entrepreneurship Summer School is great for people who come from entrepreneurial backgrounds, or you may just have an idea on the program which you wish to develop as well. So you'd work alongside our entrepreneurship faculty who will mentor you through a business idea. And then you'd also get the opportunity to present your idea to a range of angel investors as well. We at London Business School have one of the world's largest international exchange programs. We are partnered up with over 34 different partner schools. So fantastic for those of you who want to go and study abroad for a term, learn a different language or a different culture. I don't know if you are already aware, but here at London Business School, it is actually a requirement to reach a certain level of proficiency in a second language. And this is a really great way to do that as well. Global business experiences. This also came out of our recent program review. So it will be a one-week assignment in various locations around the world, including China, India, continental Europe, North America and the Middle East, and I think Africa is on there as well. And this is really designed to sort of create a global focus as part of the course. And as I said before, you can complete the course in 15, 18 or 21 months, but just jumping back to concentrations, there is the opportunity to concentrate in a particular area, subject area as well, in the second year. So we have about 8 different concentrations to choose from, varying from change management, technology management, entrepreneurship, marketing. But again, this is something that you can decide while on the course. It's not necessarily something you need to decide straight away. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Let's talk a little bit about career services and your professional journey. Obviously, it is a high investment decision, and return on investment is an important factor whilst choosing your MBA. We have a fantastic career services team here at the school. They are divided into specialist teams, so specialists in industry, finance, and consulting. We have 2 former management consultants. One works for McKinsey & Company, 2 former investment bankers. One was working for Goldman Sachs. So these guys really do know what they're talking about. They also have their own MBAs from top business schools around the world. So they will assist you with your skills development, whether you feel you need development in interviewing skills or learning how to negotiate, CV writing, cover letter writing. These are all things our career services team can help you with. Now, our career services team will also connect you to recruiters, and we have hundreds of events and presentations throughout the year. Recent networking events included our spring careers recruitment fair, where we had networking opportunities and presentations from top employers on campus, such as Facebook, Google, Thomson Reuters, Apple was there as well. But then we also have our Corporate Partners Week, which happens as well in January. So companies such as Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, Citi, Credit Suisse, Deloitte, McKinsey, BCG, they were on campus as well to meet and interview with our students. Now, networking is extremely important and will be a massive part of your MBA experience, so important to your career journey. And the network in which you will essentially buy into when deciding which MBA you're going to do is going to be a major factor. So we have around 31,000 alumni in various countries around the world, spanning over 130 different countries. So an extremely international network. So it really is easy just as, picking up a phone and dialing a number in South America if you want to speak to an engineer, or vice versa if you wanted to move to Australia at the drop of a hat. We often hear about students using the network to do that. Okay, just moving on to the next slide now. Opportunities beyond the class. Sorry, I've clicked twice. Go back. Opportunities beyond the classroom. Now, really, really important. And there are plenty of opportunities here at London Business School. So there's lots of opportunities to get involved. We have a very vibrant and active campus life. And it's really important and valuable to your school experience. We have over 70 different student clubs, which span over 4 different categories, so professional, regional, sports and social. And another great way to sort of network as well. If you are wanting to develop your leadership skills, the clubs are a great way to step up and demonstrate leadership potential. So you might want to become a leader in one of the clubs. And it's also a great way for developing your professional knowledge about different industries relevant to your future career. It's also a fantastic way to have fun as well. So you might want to join the Latin America Club if you're interested in salsa dancing. My favorite club is the Wine and Cheese Club. Or you might be quite into sports as well. So lots of opportunities to get stuck in and have fun whilst at the school. We are also the only business school in the world, still trying to persuade the Financial Times to include it as part of their rankings, to have our own unique side entrance to a pub from the campus school. So it's quite an interesting fact for you there. And just to end with a few pictures, this is Tattoo, which is a really exciting event which takes place once a year. In fact, alumni and students flying from all over the world back onto campus in London to attend this event. And people literally block this day out in their diaries months ahead. And it's just a celebration to celebrate cultural diversity. So as you can see here, all the pictures of the different regional clubs organizing events and bringing in food and dressing up in costumes. And just in the corner left-hand side, there's a picture of our Dean, Sir Andrew Leakerman, who I think is judging the Mr. and Mrs. LBS competition. And as we are coming up to Christmas time, let's go on to the next slide. I just wanted to show you a quick picture of our Santa pub crawl. So we have around 500 students going from pub to pub around London on the tube, or you call it subway system. And as you can see, it gets a little bit messy. So that brings me towards the end of the presentation. Please do feel free to ask me any questions in relation to admissions or about the school later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nadia. Really appreciate that. And what a way to end it, too, with this the Santa crawl. Something very unique I haven't seen before. So next we are going to have Tyler Henderson from Bocconi. And Tyler, can you hear me right now?
I can.
Okay, great. We can hear you too, and we've given you control, so the floor is yours.
Well, thanks. That's a tough act to follow. I learned a lot about LBS just then. I appreciate that. So yeah, as the other panelists said, I appreciate you all taking your morning and evening or time of day to listen in. My name is Tyler Henderson. You can see based on my introduction. I've been at Bocconi for 6 years, primarily responsible now as the Director of North American Operations. So for all STAA Bocconi activities in North America, recruitment, alumni relations, corporate relations, etc., which is why now I reside in the U.S. I happen to be American. It makes for a much more efficient schedule for me, although I'm obviously in Milan quite frequently. So if you reside, if you're a listener, if you reside in the U.S. or Canada, I would be your contact in Bocconi. So I just need to see the first slide. Great. So to give you a bit of context for our institution, Bocconi University is a rather old, a somewhat old Italian university. In fact, the oldest university in the world is in Bologna, much older than Bocconi, but Bocconi was founded in the early 1900s. And it was founded as a university focused on economics, management, finance, and law. So it's not a generalist institution specific in these disciplines. About 15,000 students in total in the university, and in STAA Bocconi. So STAA Bocconi is the School of Management of the university, founded in the early 1970s, and quickly thereafter the development of the full-time MBA. So we're in our 37th year. The class that started about 6 weeks ago is the 37th class. And in STAA Bocconi, people label when they are in the Bocconi MBA based on number. So in 1971, it was MBA 1, and now MBA 37. So if you ever meet a Bocconi MBA, they won't tell you the year they were there, they'll tell you the number. And there at the top is the Bocconi MBA mascot. It's Nando, and this implies, I think, several things about the institution. One is, well, this, if you've ever looked in the International Herald Tribune or Financial Times, this is a rather famous illustrator, Serge Bloch, who we contracted some years ago. So Nando, I think, implies a few different things. One, he is prepared. You know, he's sort of sitting ready at attention. But he's also not taking himself too seriously. You can see, of course, he's on a paper airplane. So it's reading something into this illustration, but I think in some ways it symbolizes that we at Bocconi try to be both sort of forward-thinking and professional, but at the same time maybe not take ourselves too seriously. So the key characteristics, this becomes a little bit more challenging to address at the end because so many of our European MBA programs promote the same advantages because in many ways we share the same advantages. Nonetheless, I think it would be useful for me to explain a few things about the program. So ours definitely sort of towards the IMD idea. It's a rather small MBA, so 110 students who all begin every year together at the same time. This is in September, October every year. Again, much like my colleagues at the other top European schools, largely international. We know that people do both choose Bocconi, but they also choose ESADE. And so we do want some Italian perspective in the room, but we don't want it to overwhelm discussion. For us, that number falls at about 20%. We've raised it and lowered it through the years, and we've sort of found a sweet spot at 20%. Although very few of those Italians were actually living in Italy prior to the MBA. Of course, more than 40 countries represented, so you do the math, there's very few people from any one country. We limit the number from any one country outside of Italy at a maximum of 10. It's a 13-month program, no flexibility at all. It's kind of a rigid curriculum and a rigid schedule. We've sampled, again, for many years, for 37 years, longer and shorter formats, and we've sort of found we've hit a sweet spot with this 13-month program. That includes a 3-month full-time internship in the middle of the program. So you can quickly do that math and see that the MBA curriculum must be completed in 10 months. What that means is a very intense daily schedule in the classroom. We find, and I'm sure colleagues at other schools on this chat would agree, students find in the first couple months of the program the curriculum a little bit overwhelming, and we don't try to make it underwhelming. We want students to have to adjust quickly to a very difficult and challenging both schedule in the MBA classroom, but also a social schedule, because there's of course many opportunities outside of the MBA. As I mentioned, there's this 3-month full-time internship in the middle, and we developed this, gosh, more than 15 years ago now, and the reason was we saw a large number of candidates who were essentially having to decide between North American or European programs, and the final decision was dependent on whether they felt an internship was necessary for them. And what we thought was, well, it's quite a pity for students who really are targeted toward Europe but also need an internship to have to sort of make the decision to attend a North American program. So we built it in. It looks very similar to an internship program that you find at a top U.S. institution, working with very large multinationals, the banking and financial services, consulting industry, etc. You can find on our website. These would be companies whose names you would know very well. Although it's a general management MBA, and that's the goal of the MBA, is a well-rounded curriculum, we do require concentration. They're fairly overarching. The first 3 you can see here: strategy, finance, marketing. Those are things Bocconi has been known to do quite well for many, many years, and thus we concentrate on these and send, of course, many graduates into these sectors for work. But a few years ago, we added a luxury business concentration as well, and if you know anything of Milan, you'd know that the luxury sector is an important one in Milan. So although we're not interested in having a luxury brand management MBA, that is not our goal at all. It is important for us to have a luxury business concentration. So for 17 students of the 110 who are admitted to a rather competitive class in this track, and they do apply before they enter the program. They apply in the admission process. Those students spend the first half of the program in Milan doing their compulsory subjects, and then split off and go to Rome for the second half of the program because they are studying the headquarters of Bocconi, which happens to be located in Rome. Why this sort of bottom point location in central Milan? I think this tends to be for us a nice selling point, but also a nice reality in that Milan being the business finance industry and fashion headquarters of Milan, sort of living in the teeth, living in the daily life of this is quite important. So those on this chat who have ever been to Milan, you're likely to have stopped by the Duomo, the main cathedral in the center of town, at some point during your stay in Milan. Bocconi is about 25 minutes walk just to the southwest, so 2 subway stops, just to give you a little context of the location. So just in my last couple minutes, I'm going to quickly go through the program structure. Here we are. There's a decent percentage of our class who do not come from, let's say, a traditional business background or don't come from a quantitative background. And it makes for quite an interesting program to involve people of different perspectives and from different academic and professional backgrounds in the program. So for those students, they must come early. They must come early and do accounting, econ, and quantitative methods. We need to get them up to a baseline level of knowledge in these 3 subjects. And also during this period, for those who do not speak Italian, and this is the vast majority of students entering the program, we offer an intensive Italian language academy to get a kind of a base level of knowledge. Although we don't require proficiency in Italian to enter or exit the MBA, it's quite a motivating piece for people to learn, the language piece. So from there, in October, the program begins in earnest, and until March is when you hit the MBA core curriculum, which looks rather similar. We have sort of different names around the MBA world, but more or less this is, you're going to see the same overarching core curriculum in many programs. April and May, we move into a very intensive soft skill development program, so this is really sort of focusing on strengths and weaknesses related to leadership and how we can bring those out and improve them in various people. June through August, the internship, which I mentioned before. In lieu of that, some people, because of their career point, etc., aren't that interested in an internship. So we have the opportunity for an entrepreneurial project, which is developed through the summer with 2 faculty, INSEAD Bocconi, or a consultancy project. Then at the end here, September and October is when we hit the concentration phase of the program, and that either happens in Milan, and for 80% of the students that is the case. 80% of our students take the entire curriculum in Milan, but 20% and up to 25% as a possibility can do an exchange, which, for example, even just on this call, LBS and ESADE are exchange partners. So there's options all around Europe, some of the top U.S. business schools, Kellogg, Booth, Stern, Wharton, etc., as well as in Asia and in the South Pacific. And there's generally very specific reasons why people want to do exchange. There's a language reason, there's a cultural reason, or a professional reason. I've reached the end. I'm going to stop there. Appreciate the time, and I look forward to your questions in the chat portion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Really great to learn more about Bocconi. So just a quick update. We were able to locate Jeroen again. And Jeroen, can you hear us?
Yes, I can certainly hear you. Glad to be back.
Great. We can hear you just fine as well. So, instead of picking up where we left off, we thought that it might be a good idea to just start from the beginning with your presentation, because it is a really great presentation on ESADE. Would you be comfortable just starting from the top?
Sure. I'll try to be as quick as I can, because you've all been listening quite a while for presentation. But I'll just quickly walk you through the presentation for ESADE. So that's a beautiful plan. Thank you very much, Eric. Basically, what I wanted to share with you all is that the ESADE's value proposition can be summed up in three main areas, which would be flexibility and personalization, cooperation, and diversity. And if we look at the next slide, we can see the flexibility in the program structure. The flexibility in terms of 12, 15, and 18 months. So basically, the philosophy of ESADE is that we want to offer the sort of more standard US module with a 2 academic year, or the shorter version in Europe with a 1-year program. But the uniqueness of this fact is that you do not have to decide this before you join us. You can actually decide this approximately 6 months down the road in March. You start at the end of August, and in March you decide if you want to finish your MBA in 12 months, 15 months, or 18 months. So the 12 months MBA is basically an intensification of the program. In the end, you'll have the same amount of classes in each of these three program formats. But in the 15 and 18-month program, you have the option to do an internship or a corporate internship or an exchange program. In the 15 months, you can do either or. And in the 18-month program, you can actually do both. We have the philosophy that, of course, each MBA candidate is unique. So everyone who comes into the program will actually have different needs in order to, to get the maximum benefit out of the MBA program. So the idea is to adapt the program to what actually each person would like to do. Some people want to make a career change. In this case, we would recommend to do an internship, or at least spend a bit more time in the MBA program to work towards that change. Other people, those who, for example, come company-sponsored or just people who have more work experience, maybe prefer to do the MBA sort of as quick as they can, and in that sense, a 1-year MBA will be enough. If we look at the diversity in the next slide, please, we can see that the class size is relatively small. We have 180 students each year, where we have truly the world in your classroom. The amount of international students each year is between 80 and 90%. So we have a relatively small percentage of Spanish students. Obviously, being based in Spain, we are a truly global program, where the actual work experience that people bring to the program is of vital importance. The average age of our candidates is 28, and people bring approximately 5 years of work experience to the program. The cooperation that I mentioned in the beginning is an important aspect of the ESADE module, because we strongly believe that in an MBA program where people come in with experience, it is important to learn from each other. So the whole methodology is focused around the learning module based on learning from each other, especially taking into consideration when you have so much diversity in the classroom, both from nationality perspective as well as from academic and professional point of view, the learning experience becomes more intense. If we look at the next slide, we see the city of Barcelona, which is, of course, a fantastic place. I'm sure that many of you have had the opportunity to visit this city. It is not just a spectacular place to live, it is also a very good city for doing business. Of course, we're all following the news, and we hear that Spain is going through a bit of a difficult time. However, I dare to say that Barcelona is always a little bit ahead of the pack, and it is a very, in that sense, a very business-oriented city, and it actually comes out continuously as one of the top-ranked cities in Europe to actually do business, and also from a more, personal point of view, a fantastic city to live. Linked with that is, of course, the Spanish language. Barcelona being based in Spain, the added advantage of doing your MBA in Spain is the opportunity to learn Spanish, either starting from scratch, because you do not need to speak Spanish when you start a program, or if you come in with a good level of Spanish, to bring your Spanish or business Spanish to the next level. And obviously, the advantage of being Spanish from a business point of view is extremely important. If we look at the next slide, please, we can actually see two fish swimming in two different bowls. And when we talk about personalization, I'd like to ask the question, do you prefer to be a small fish in a big pond or a big fish in a smaller pond? Well, obviously, looking at these images, you may say, I prefer to be the small fish because I have more space to move around. However, from an MBA point of view, it can be very interesting to be a big fish in a smaller pond, because you have much more possibilities to be snapped up by a company. We can give you a lot of face-to-face time with companies. And if we look at the next slide, we can see the vision of some of the companies that have been on campus. And the point I would like to make here in this slide is that it is very important for ESADE that we bring companies across the board on campus. So it's not a typical consulting or banking MBA, but those companies, of course, are on campus. But also we'll bring you in touch with all kinds of companies from different sectors. And with a relatively small class and a large number of companies on campus, we can say that you can be a big fish in a small pond, which can be very successful, very important for you for your return on investment on the MBA. And then last but not least, in the next slide, I wanted to explain a little bit more about how the career services team actually helps our candidates. In the first place, that is through key account management. We have assigned career advisors who have either a sector-focused or a geographical focus, who actually do continuously sort of customer relationship management with our companies to make sure companies keep coming back on campus, as well as new companies coming on campus. This is very important for ESADE, for the students, and of course, in this sense, also for the companies, where we can create sort of a triangular relationship, if you like, between students, companies, and our business school. In relation to that, also we have the strategic advising. Again, if I look at personalization, this is something very important because you have a lot of face-to-face time with our career advisors who will do our very best to create opportunities for you. It's all about opening doors, and then of course the students themselves have to walk through that open door. But a lot of opportunities can be generated by a business school, and we help you in analyzing your profile, talking with you about your career objectives. We give you sectoral insights, also geographical insights, so very useful information to help you in your career and job search. And then the last block would be the career impact cycle, which is basically sort of a block of seminars that runs right through the whole MBA program, that helps you with how to sell yourself, writing the right cover letters, editing your CV, etc., just to make sure that the MBA is not just gathering new knowledge, but also really helping you from a very personalized perspective to help you in getting the result that you would like to have. And of course, results, success are different for everybody, and this again comes back to the personalization. Just to finalize, I wanted to mention that our full-time MBA is based in Barcelona, but ESADE as a business school, we also have campuses in Madrid for executive education, as well as in Buenos Aires, also for executive education, mainly catering to the Latin American market, which of course from culturally from Spain has always been a strong link. And our alumni chapters, they span the globe from the US to India. So in that sense, it is a truly global school with our home base in Barcelona. These are just a couple of quick snapshots about our MBA. Again, I do ask for apologies for the technical problems that I had with my laptop, but I'm glad it all worked out thanks to the technical support from Beta GMAT. And with this, I would like to pass the mic back to Eric, please.
Thank you so much, Rune, and many thanks for being so flexible and sharing with us the ESADE program through your presentation. So the next thing that we are going to do right now is we're going to take a very quick break. So I understand that we're running a little bit over time. By my clock, I see that it is 10:13 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I still would like to take a 5-minute break, and I think that all our audience members and panelists wouldn't mind maybe a quick stretch, a visit to the restroom, and perhaps a martini, or all three. So why don't we reconvene in 5 minutes promptly at 10:18 a.m. Pacific Time, and you can go ahead and convert that to your respective time zone. And we'll get to the panel discussion. We may have to abbreviate it just a little bit, but we have many great questions that we're going to ask this distinguished panel. And these questions were actually all from you guys. When you signed up for this webinar, you had sent us some questions that you were interested in finding answers to, and we're going to address them. So thank you guys very much. Please stick around, and we will be back in 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Hope that you're coming back to this presentation nice and refreshed. So next on our agenda, we are going to have a panel discussion where when you signed up for this presentation, for this webinar for today, many of you actually submitted your own questions about why, what made the European MBA so special, some of your concerns and issues that you raised about what it's like to study in Europe. So I've gone ahead and compiled many of these questions, and we're going to do our best to address them all for this next portion. And what I am going to do now is invite back our speakers to participate in this session, and we're gonna try to run this for the next 40 minutes or so, and hopefully that'll allow us to address many of the questions that were submitted. So welcome back, everyone. It's nice to the panelists. It's nice to have you here. I have the first question is one that I'd like to ask all the panelists to answer, and we can do it in order of the schools that you see on the screen right here, which is why go to Europe for your MBA versus anywhere else? So Jeroen, I'd like to actually start with you. Jeroen, why should I go to Europe for my MBA versus anywhere else?
I would say straight from the bottom of my heart, the diversity that you get in Europe, diversity in terms of cultures, diversity in terms of languages, I think that is the crucial part of studying in Europe. And in today's business world, to be able to, in a flat world, as Thomas Friedman calls it, in a world where there is increasingly more and more contact with people from all over the world, I think being able to navigate and work in a multicultural world is a great added advantage that you will have if you study your MBA in any European school.
Lisa, any thoughts about that?
I would totally agree with him. Everyone can hear me.
Yes.
I would totally agree with him, and I would just add one thing. A lot of people nowadays, like for example at IMD, we have roughly 30% of the class now happens to be Asian, and a lot of people want to work in Asia, but the Asians actually want to work in Europe. And what's still good is that about Europe is that people actually can still stay here. So with the work permits, there are certain countries that have been a little bit more strict about it, but at least in most of the European countries, you can still stay and work, which a lot of people would like to get that European experience. Most of them have global jobs, but based somewhere in one of the good countries here.
Your thoughts, Andrew?
Well, it's kind of already been covered, but I think it just it's probably much more challenging environment and location. I mean, I think when you look at the opposite kind of choice, which would be more historically North America, I mean, doing business might not change much from maybe doing it in Chicago to LA to, I don't know, Toronto. But when you go from, I don't know, Madrid, Barcelona, then via Switzerland, and then off into London and back around into other countries, I mean, it's completely different. And so I think you're much more challenged as a professional by not only doing your MBA in Europe, but then later on possibly being based here.
Nadia and Tyler, I don't know if you have anything else to add on to this.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree with the fact, it's internationalism. You will not find the type of diversity we have in Europe anywhere else in the world. which I think will give you, the edge over other candidates when it comes to, finding a job, an international job on the market, especially in today's, competitive global economy. But I would also add to that the class sizes as well. We do have slightly smaller class sizes in Europe compared to most of the US schools, and I think especially it does provide for a sort of a strong sense of community. I think it's a more intimate learning environment, and I think you will benefit from stronger networks as well as stronger friendships as well.
Great. And Tyler, I don't know if you have any final comments about that question. Why Europe?
Yeah, I mean, there's this absolute global piece which we all agree on, but let's not forget the programs are shorter and cheaper as well, which is, for many people, particularly those more advanced in their working careers, a huge advantage.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Tyler, because that's a perfect segue to my next question, which is, why do many of the European programs emphasize one-year MBAs versus the traditional two-year MBA that we see in the United States? And this question I really like to direct to Tyler as well as Lisa and Andrew. But Tyler, why don't you start off?
Yeah, that's a question that commonly comes from the U.S. How can you fit a two-year program into only 1 year? But if we flip that and say, well, why would you take a one-year program and extend it out over 2 years? It's sort of the answer is simply that it's the tradition. The North American tradition is a two-year MBA, and the European is some variation of 1 year, let's say between 11 and 18 months. And we've always run them that way, and I think we do it pretty well.
I would add to that, this is Lisa, I would add to Tyler's point that with the one-year MBA, most of our students in Europe are slightly older. So I think that the two-year MBA still has a place out there for sure. But I would really suggest that that's actually for younger people who don't have much work experience. Most of us require at least 2 years of work experience to get into the programs, whereas I know a lot of the U.S. schools are changing that slightly. So when you're 30 or 31, you don't really want to take 2 years out of your life anymore to actually do an MBA, and you can do it. You can get the same exact basic program in 1 year that you can in 2 in the U.S.
Well, I don't know. I seem to be going third. Not much to add to that. To be fully honest, I think it's important to highlight, as both Lisa and Tyler said, that we have been doing this many of our schools for a while now. I mean, I think everyone's been doing it roughly for between 30, 40, 50 years. So I think it's important, at least as a North American, to highlight that this isn't something that we just woke up one day, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, that decided, okay, we should start offering maybe just a one-year program or a shorter program. That most schools have been doing it for quite a while now, and we obviously do it very well. So it's important to highlight that, because when you look at the traditional aspect, like Tyler mentioned, it is the 2 years, and unfortunately, that's just how it is. I mean, if one U.S. school decided to switch the format, it might take a while before the rest do it too. So I think it also reflects the world that we live in, business. Things are much more fast-paced. If you come out of a 2-year program 2 years later, you kind of have to re-wake up to reality, which you wouldn't have as much coming out of a shorter European program.
I want to flip this question to Nadia at LBS as well as Jeroen at ESADE. So it seems like your peers have adopted roughly a one-year MBA program, yet both LBS and ESADE offer programs that are longer in length. And just wanted to explore that a little bit more in terms of why your programs are structured to be longer. And Nadia, why don't we begin with you?
Sure. Well, LBS, as you say, it is quite flexible. You can choose to, finish at different exit points throughout the MBA. But we want to give students really the flexibility, as we understand students coming from various different points within their career, and also for different reasons. We believe for career changes, they need that time to make that switch. So they want to take advantage of the networking opportunities, the various internship opportunities. But then we also realize for the career advances, for example, a one-year program would suit them just fine. So for those people who want to climb the career ladder, who need to sort of fill those gaps within their skill base, the one-year program would do that for them. So it's really about giving our students the platform in order to make their career journey, really.
Any follow-ups to that, Jeroen?
Yes, this is exactly what I would like to comment on as well. And we believe that both formats have their pros and cons. I totally agree with Tyler that you can actually do a 2-year MBA in a one-year format. That's why the number of courses that you take at ESADE in any given format is actually the same. But it is just related to what are your goals. If you really want to make a relatively sort of a drastic career change, then an internship can come very much at hand. So it's more, I would say, the factors, maybe not so much the pure academic factors that make the difference, but maybe more the factors surrounding that, and that clearly comes in line with the profile of students. So as Lisa mentioned, for younger students, the longer format can work out nice. They also don't have to worry so much about very high opportunity costs to leave their job. Whereas if you've been in business for 10 years, as we said, in Europe, many people come with slightly more experience to the MBA than in the US. If you've been 10 years in business and then go out of business and be 2 years in school, it's a high opportunity cost, and also it can be difficult for those people to then settle back into business. So yeah, I think most of the comments have nicely summed this thing up, that both formats are strong, and a 1-year MBA can be a perfectly viable option for people to just do it a little bit quicker. Yeah.
So I want to explore this notion about age differences or age just generally in Europe. And Tyler, I kind of want to pick on you for this next question. So what is the Bologna Accord? And the reason why I'm asking you is because I know you've actually worked on Bologna Accord policy in the past. Can you explain to us what that is?
Yeah, this is a bit of a blast from the past. It's called the Bologna Accord or Bologna Declaration. It was signed in the city of Bologna, that's the name. And it was a European harmonization sort of initiative for higher education. So let's say 15 years ago or 10 years ago even, you're a undergraduate student in Finland and you want to take a term abroad in Greece. Well, the educational sort of higher education systems were different. The length of the programs were different at the bachelor and master level. What a credit looked like was different. So it was a means to stimulate Europeanization, the movement of academic students around the continent. It's fully initiative, a 3+2+3 plan, which is 3-year bachelor, 2-year master, 3-year PhD programs. MBA programs, because to many extents they're much more professional oriented than academic, they typically, and I suspect in the case of all of our institutions, they fall out of the Bologna Declaration, which is why, despite the fact that it's labeled a master's program, the length of time are not a rigid 2-year program. Is it clear?
Yeah, that is clear. And you, I guess, sort of answered my next question, which was, there's been a lot of discussion about the Bologna Accord that I've seen in our community because there's a perception that it's going to lead to younger MBA applicants and younger just student bodies in general. But from what you're saying, it seems that the MBA programs in Europe are sort of outside of that system. So you don't see that being a trend, Tyler, or anyone else in the panel?
I'll just quickly say I don't see it being a trend. We have, and I'm curious to the response of others, we have a large number of our students who come to us with a master's degree. But the MBA is so different from that master's degree that essentially they're holding 2 master's degrees that are unrelated to each other. I don't think it'll drive the age down much, if at all.
If I may, I tend to agree with that. We do see that the Bologna agreement has a more of an effect on our MSc programs, where obviously the candidates are younger. MScs for people with less than 3 years of work experience. That's where we clearly see an increase. For the MBA, I tend to agree with Tyler that they're a bit out of that model anyway, because we're talking to a different kind of profile of people.
Okay, any other comments from the panel? So, I just want to expand upon this a little bit more to this whole notion of age, because at least what I've seen as a trend in the community is age is becoming more and more discussed in terms of when is the right time to go to pursue my MBA. And in general, what I've seen over the years at BTGMAT is that the argument is for doing an MBA earlier in your career seems to be becoming more favorably looked upon as something that you can do. You can make bigger sacrifices earlier on and maximize, I suppose, the return for your career post MBA. I'm going to make a gross generalization here, because many of the people who are in this audience today are coming from outside of Europe, and I've heard many cases being made, particularly for the folks with one-year MBA, saying that we have a typically older student body. So, would I be a good fit for going to business school in Europe if I had less work experience, let's say under 3 years, under 4 years? Is Europe a bad fit for me? Because is Europe more catering towards older MBA applicants? And because Andrew, I've been picking on you going last, I want you to address this first, if you can.
That's fine. No, it's not that you have a harder time. It's just that if you look at the stats for a lot of our schools, we just we have a kind of an age range where we tend to accept our applicants from, and usually with age goes work experience, and our recruiters and our program is catered to a more experienced group. More experience, I'd say probably between 26 and like 31 years old. I mean, depending on the program. So it's not a matter of, like, I would say that Europe wants you to be older. It's just that in America, I think there's this tradition of you go to high school, then you go to college, you might work a bit, but you might do an MBA immediately after with only a couple of years. And here you don't have that kind of tradition or history. And so we're looking for people that are experienced that will then be able to, after 1 year or 18 months of studying, be able to go and work right away.
Any other thoughts from other panelists in terms of this issue with the age?
Eric, can I just I'll give you an example. I agree with what Andrew said regarding our recruiters, for example, are looking for a certain age profile and work experience. But I'll give you an example that I personally had. When I graduated from university, the company that I went to work for actually sent me to an MBA program. It was executive MBA when I was 20. I think I was 24 at the time, and I had very, very, very little business experience, and therefore I could not add anything, nor did I get anything out of it, because I couldn't relate to anything. So I actually think waiting is a little bit better for you. You don't have to wait, until you have 7 years of work experience, but 4 or 5 would actually behoove somebody to be able to at least get to give some input and actually to take something back.
Yeah, I'm going to actually put away my questioner hat aside and just expand a little bit about that too. I completely agree with you, Lisa, in the sense that I remember my mentality leaving college and starting my first job. And I had no idea what I was doing. It was like going to school for the first time again when I entered the business world. And had I actually went directly to an MBA myself, and this is just my own personal experience, I feel like I would not have understood many things being discussed. I probably wouldn't have anything to contribute that was too meaningful. So for those of you who are currently in the application process and are a little bit earlier in your careers, I do think it's a good idea to build some experiences first, because you're just going to get so much more out of your MBA. So my little rant, my little soapbox speech, and I think it's important because this trend where I see our community making the argument that you should go younger and younger and directly out of college, I disagree with it myself. And it seems that if you really want to take that mentality, and just to make this gross generalization go a little bit further, Europe may not be a good place for you either, because you'll be coming into a place where everyone around you has a lot of experience, maybe more so than you'll typically see in a North American program. So that's something to consider when thinking about fit for future programs. I hope. I wonder if anyone thinks on the panel that I'm overstepping in terms of that statement, or whether you agree or disagree.
This is Tyler. I don't think you're overstepping at all. I mean, although I've never worked at a U.S. business school, I have many colleagues, as we all do at U.S. schools. Their preference would be that the applicants be older. This is a large reaction to the fact that the system in the U.S. does encourage people towards master's programs at a much younger age than it does elsewhere in the world. And a lot of these institutions realized some years ago they were losing a lot of smart people into other graduate programs, particularly law school, and had to adjust their admission criteria to be able to capture some, let's say, very intelligent and motivated people, despite the fact they didn't have experience. So as you refer to it, to your community, I completely agree. I push it back. I mean, the more you know going into an MBA program related to your sort of life and career goals, the more you're going to get to come out. I have our career guide right in front of us. You can see the salaries coming out of MBA programs just as one sort of further support of this. They're significantly higher the more work experience you have coming in.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. I was salivating a little bit when you guys were sharing your salary information. Made me realize maybe I should apply to a European program at some point. So let's move on actually to another question here. And this is a question that I saw coming up with a lot of frequency from our attendees. And Nadia, I'd like to actually ask you to answer this one. So if I go to Europe for my MBA, does that mean I need to stay in Europe afterward for my career? Is that really the most logical path? Any thoughts on that, Nadia?
Absolutely not, I would say. You're not bound to staying in Europe if you graduate with a European MBA. In fact, I mean, we have a huge student body from the US. Around 12% of our students actually come from North America, and return to North America or outside of Europe. So I don't think it necessarily bounds you to stay in Europe. And I think that's the beauty of having such a global network as well, in the fact that it really allows you to expand and think about working outside of where you studied and outside of where you lived, and really take into consideration other countries and job markets. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add to that.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that, Nadia. The fact that all the European programs are so global in nature, it certainly doesn't mean that if you study in Spain, you stay in Spain. If you study in France, you stay in France. But it is that international experience that wherever you go after your MBA, that can really help you to move about, with more ease in this globalized world. So it is definitely, we talk a lot about globalization, but I think if there is one sector where we truly embraced globalization, it's probably the international MBA programs.
Yeah, and I would almost just to add to that, I mean, I'd flip the question around saying, this question is, if I go to Europe for my MBA, does that mean I need to stay in Europe? No, I'd say a European MBA opens you to the world, like Nadia said. You might want to look at what the flip side is, and not maybe the other offerings, which would be more North American type MBAs, which, you might not have as many global opportunities. Your alumni might not be based in as many cities and countries around the world as if you did a European-based MBA.
Yeah, again, I think that this question coming in is really, this is Eric, is really a fit question as well, right? I mean, you have to, for the applicant who's considering this question, look to yourself and ask yourself as well what your goals are after your MBA degree. I mean, if you think that you're going to want to pursue a career that has some global impact, whether that's in working with other cultures, living in different cultures, and so forth, then maybe Europe is a good place for you in terms of fit. However, let's say that you're only interested in going back to your family's sausage making factory in Chicago, and you're really interested in just mastering the network in that region, being the top sausage supplier of the Midwest. Then you can make a case that region does matter to you, where you do your MBA, where you do your network. So something to consider in terms of when you diagnose your own fit, in terms of what do you want to do afterward. Let's get to some. So I kind of threw you guys a little bit of softball questions. I want to get to some hard-hitting questions that are on a lot of people's minds, and these are the questions that have been very popular coming in. And Lisa, I'm going to pick on you to answer first this next question, which is, you're welcome. Should applicants consider rankings, or how much should applicants consider rankings as a criteria for selecting business schools?
Well, that's a question that we get asked all the time on the panels that we do when we're doing the fairs. The thing is, I think it's a really, really good place to start, but it's not a good place to finish. I think, again, what you mentioned, Eric, about fit is almost more important. So rankings, yes, if you want a top school and that's the only thing you're looking for, then obviously choose the someone in the top 10. But my advice is you're going to spend a lot of time there. You're going to spend a lot of time with these people. I think choosing a school that fits you is actually probably more important in the long term than an actual ranking itself. And the way to actually, from what I tell people, is in order to assess fit, is talk to as many alumni as you possibly can. go visit the school if you possibly can. I know it's a little bit difficult if you're based in the U.S. to come to Europe, but most of us have virtual tours now that you can actually get online and see a marketing presentation. But I think fit is equally as important, if not more, than rankings.
If I may add something here, this is Jeroen from ESADE. I think this is, if you don't think of the example of the family company selling sausages in the Midwest, then maybe rankings are not the most important thing, because you really need to get the knowledge and the local network. If you're looking for, let's say, really global opportunities, if you want to have maybe some of the top consulting firms, those firms, they cannot go to many business schools to recruit. So their rankings may be a little bit more important. I think there is no clear answer. It really has to do with the fit. I agree with Lisa that rankings are a good starting point, but you should always have at the front of your mind, what are my goals? Where do I see myself working? Do I need to learn another language? Yes or no? There's so many factors that come into the equation, and rankings is a good starting point, as well as the let's say the accreditation bodies, just to sort of for you to get going, and then by talking to alumni, by visiting schools, by listening into events like this, you'll get more information, and I think information is, in that sense, is key for you to see which school is probably going to help you best.
Jeroen, you said something that I'd love to have you expand a little bit more. So you mentioned accrediting bodies. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. I mean, there's so many MBA programs that sometimes it can be a little bit confusing if you're beginning your MBA search and you hear, you open many websites, you read the brochures, and they all look, marvelous. I mean, every school is able to present a nice brochure and stuff. So sometimes it is difficult to get a bit more of a solid, let's say, more independent kind of view. And that's why the accreditation bodies are important. You have both the AACSBs from the United States, you have the AMBA, this is a British-based organization, and you also have the EFMB, the EQUIS accreditation, they're based in Brussels. And they're basically, from a more independent point of view, give quality standards. And accreditation bodies actually go and visit business schools. It's almost like an audit. So those accreditation bodies, they come over, they look at the school, very detailed questions, and if those bodies feel that the school is up to international standards, they can get accredited. And then to stay accredited, you have to keep up those high standards. So for candidates, that can also be a very good idea to look at the school of my interest. Are they accredited? A lot of top schools, they will have the triple accreditation. They'll bring the 3 accreditations that I mentioned before. They'll bring those together. And that, in addition to rankings, can give you a bit of a head start to see where is the school standing from an international point of view.
Great. I don't know if any other panelists had any thoughts on rankings before we move on. Okay.
I mean, I agree with what everyone else has said, and really, I would say, create your own rankings, and as Lisa said, visit the school, do your own research. And think about what's important to you. Is it the location? Is it recruitment patterns? Is it whether the business school has a certain strength in a particular subject? Those are the things you really need to think about, and think about what's important to you personally in your own career journey.
Let me add one final comment about rankings, which goes for all European schools. If we look at cross-section in time of rankings, we see that, let's say, 10 years ago, maybe the rankings were basically topped up by US schools. But if we look at nowadays rankings, we see that more non-US schools are coming into the rankings. Of course, some of the top European schools, also some Asian schools. So I do think that the international, how can I say, reputation for non-US MBAs is growing a lot. So that, I think, is in line with what we said before, that the European MBAs are, all of us, we're doing a good job, and it is more and more recognized from an international point of view.
So thank you guys for that. This next question, I have been looking at my stock portfolio recently over the last few months, and have been nearly at tears at a daily basis, except for this week. And a lot of the economic issues we're seeing today are related to debt crises that we're seeing across the Eurozone. And I want to actually ask this next question to Tyler and to Jeroen, because your country's
expecting this, yes.
yes, and this has been on the minds of many of our audience members too, just seeing the level of questions coming in. So what impact, if any, has the Eurozone debt crisis had on your own MBA students' attitudes towards their careers after they graduate? Have you noticed any trends in terms of the mentality? And Tyler, I'm going to ask you to answer this one first.
Yeah, of course. It's a really important question. It's also, from the Eurozone perspective, a bit of a new question in the sense that it hasn't really affected exiting classes as yet, but it will soon. I think the short answer, which is also, maybe it won't be so short, but the honest answer is things are uncertain. You know, things are uncertain globally, things are uncertain regionally in Europe, and things are certainly uncertain in Italy. What our students and applicants realize, and I hopefully focus on, is the long term. So maybe encouraging you, Eric, not to look at your portfolio every week, kind of thinking a bit longer term. And in the spirit of that, what we have to do to react, and we'll certainly be doing this next year, is job placements in Italy will be affected. Fortunately, when we look at career placements in Bocconi and all the schools here, we would say our primary network, or we say our primary network is Europe-wide, and then the world secondarily. And so the reaction to that would be having to send more of our graduates into more stable European markets if that's where they're targeting. So at the moment, that would be Switzerland, that would be Germany, Scandinavia as well. And that's a reaction that we make year to year. I mean, I'm sure Jeroen will follow up with, and I'm guessing something about job placements in Spain specifically, and having to be flexible. And so that's why we work very hard. Although we happen to be located in Italy, we don't identify as an Italian business school. We're global first, and we're European second.
This is, thank you, Tyler. This is a very important point. And even before, let's say, the crisis hit Spain and other countries, even before that, the majority of our MBA students were already looking at jobs elsewhere. I mean, if people would follow their heart, many people would want to stay in Spain afterwards. And most people, I'm not exaggerating, most people actually fall in love with Barcelona when they come here, but most people also have to pay back a steep student loan, so they also have to look at their wallet when they leave the MBA. And it is true, even before the crisis, of course, that better paid jobs were to be found in London, Frankfurt, Amsterdam, and many other cities. So we have always had an international outlook on recruiting, and this has been emphasized, I would say, a little bit more now that Spain is going through a difficult time. But also the kind of jobs that people can get from MBA schools are so diverse. If we were to be, let's say, a master program specializing in Spanish construction firms, I mean, we would be out of business by now. But luckily, we are an international MBA program, and if maybe recruiting is slow in Spain, maybe in Saudi Arabia, or maybe in Brazil, or in Colombia, there are many opportunities. So the more international the global MBA program is, the more globally oriented, the more possibilities people have to actually find a job. And if you look at job placements, the majority of recruiting is outside of Spain, and within Spain, of course, even if there is economic problems, there are still a lot of opportunities, because companies that are in trouble, they need to receive help from consultants, let's say, to get through the crisis. So also, there's a famous Spanish saying that says, no hay mal que por bien no venga. So every cloud has its silver lining, that would be the translation. So there's always opportunities, but definitely having an international outlook is vital.
Great, and I think we have only time for one more question here. So let me ask that was a glass half empty kind of question. Let me ask a glass half full question. And Lisa, I'd like to give you a shot at answering this one first. What are the post-MBA careers and opportunities in Europe that excite you and your students today?
Well, IMD, because we're focused on general management, a lot of people, if you look at our stat sheet, which you can download from our website, a lot of the people that we place go into industry. So roughly, I think 75% of last year's class went in industry, followed closely by consulting, and then finance. So we're a little bit different, for example, probably than some of the schools, but we're heavily industry based, and so they're going into, because we're slightly older, they're going into fairly senior roles. So they're going into, for example, we had, I think, 2 or 3 just now in the last 2 weeks placed as, they call them CEO positions, with some of the top companies like Siemens, and so they're essentially right-hand people to the either managing director or the CEO. So they're similar to a rotational program, but at a fairly high level. So we see those kind of positions a lot of business development, a lot of M&A. Within industry, you know, just various, and then of course the top consulting firms are all here as well. McKinsey, Booz Allen, BCG, they're all at IMD all the time. Yeah, answer your question?
Yeah, it did. What about any thoughts, Nadia? I'm gonna go to you next, actually.
Well, I agree. We still continue to work with most of our corporate partners. So many of the top tier management consultancy firms, finance firms. I was actually speaking with our dean, Sir Andrew Leakerman, last night, and he was very excited with our latest employment stats. So it's clearly hasn't impacted recruitment at London Business School. We're still doing very, very well. And our dean is actually the non-executive director of Barclays Bank, and also the chairman of the National Audit Office here in the UK. So he put our minds to rest about the sort of financial recruitment sector post graduation. So I think we're doing pretty well here at London Business School. Yeah.
Great. How about you, Andrew? Any thoughts in terms of exciting career trends or that you're seeing among your students?
Something interesting that's actually probably affecting all of us with Europe expanding, but just what's exciting for us is the increase in opportunities in, I'd say, Central Eastern Europe. I mean, obviously, you know, technically Russia does not fit into the technical definition of Europe today, but just seeing opportunities increasing in places like Bulgaria, Romania, Russia, Poland, that's really exciting to see, because if you look at, you know, where it was, I'd say even 5-6 years ago, those numbers are increasing rapidly, and that's very positive for what's happening in those countries.
Excellent. How about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I remain encouraged, actually. I think in these moments, and we've seen this now throughout the world, you know, I think in addition to people deciding on, the trends are following this in Bocconi. I wonder about other places as well, I suspect. You know, people are not only following what they're qualified to do, but what they're passionate to do. And so we're seeing an absolute increase in entrepreneurship in our younger MBA graduates, which historically they would wait a little longer. And this could be lack of opportunity, but in the conversations I've had throughout the world with alumni recently, it's simply wanting to execute something they're passionate about earlier in their career. So for me, that feels important. I think, you know, let's say we play the hand we're dealt, not the one that we wish we had. So that's one piece for us, entrepreneurship. Related to placements, we're definitely seeing more placements in the healthcare sector. You know, as our dean said, old people and green energy. And it's true. You know, let's say related to industry, green energy is booming in Europe as well. And more job in healthcare, which, you know, I think is a great sign for MBA graduates to move into this sector.
Wonderful. Jeroen, any final, I'll let you finish it off. Any final thoughts in terms of what's exciting to you?
Well, the energy thing is big. Entrepreneurship has been on top of the list for quite a few years. And I would see the link with emerging markets. For us at ESADE, we have close links with Latin America. Countries like Brazil offer tremendous opportunities. Anything related to emerging markets, and that can be either in a consulting role or in a more industry-related role. Emerging markets is big. Countries such as Peru, Colombia, they present solid growth figures. And this is also a trend that we see reflected that a lot of people are looking towards South America. Some of our Spanish graduates, instead of maybe looking now in jobs in Barcelona and Madrid, they look at South America, for example, and the energy sector has also been strong. With renewable energy, for example, ethanol in Brazil, those aspects have been important for ESADE as well.
Wonderful. Well, I think we are at the end of our hour for this Q&A session, and first of all, I just want to extend a hearty thank you to all of our panelists today who have generously spent their Saturday evenings with us to talk about their programs as well as to share their thoughts about why Europe and hopefully make the case that you should do your MBA in Europe. So thank you to all of you so much for coming today. And
Thank you.
So what we're going to do next is, let me actually move to the next slide here. In the next hour, and why don't we actually, right now I see it as 11:01, but in case you guys want to have another refreshment break, we can convene in another 5 minutes at the comment walls. We're asking that our panelists today go to their respective MBA Watch comment walls, and this is going to be an opportunity for you as the audience member to ask your individual questions to the schools, and we're going to have 5 chat sessions. So you can see the links to the comment walls here for ESADE, IMD, INSEAD, LBS, and Bocconi, and the panelists you heard today will be there to answer your questions for the next hour. And just to remind you, in case you can't click on these links on my presentation, I understand, so I can actually show you one way to get to those MBA Watch pages. You can just type in mbawatch.com, and what I like to do is there's a search box right here where you can type in the name of the school. I want to actually visit Andrew, so at INSEAD, and you can type in the school. There's gonna be a link for comment wall. You can go ahead and click on that, and you'll be able to just when you're logged in to write a comment, and Andrew will be around to look at the questions coming in, and he'll respond to you. If so, that's how you get to the comment walls. Hopefully that's clear to you. And at this point, this portion of the webinar through this platform has concluded. You can make your way over to the MBA Watch pages, and we'll continue the discussion there. So thank you so much for coming to today's session, and we hope to do this again in the future. So all the best to you guys, and we'll see you in the comment walls in 5 minutes. Take care, guys.